Jumpin In, delivered to your door by the wine cellar, Douglas.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are once again, our favourite time of the week, namely 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, because you know what that means. Shout out all together. It is time for Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz, with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's show. And first off, congratulations to Port Erin Jazz Festival for a terrific festival weekend last week, and a sparkling lineup of Manx talent, as well as a number of visiting guests, including the irrepressible Alan Barnes and Dave Newton. Terrific stuff. Hopefully there'll be even more to come in the future. Now, speaking of festivals, we're looking forward to this year's London Jazz Festival, which kicks off on the 11th of November, with 10 days and nights packed full of the jazz world's best, including a couple of milestone birthday concerts. So book now. So, H, what's been featuring in your festival futures this week, or has the cupboard been bare, pretty much like the current financial market?
Well, with the financial market might be down, but the jazz stocks are up, I would say, without a doubt. The comet's coming. Yes, a pulsating intergalactic headbanger. Stay tuned is all I can say. A new one for the first in some time, with Arild Anderson's got his new quartet, the first recording out from them, and I have an entry for possibly jazz title of the year.
And from me, well, a good afternoon, some loose coins, a look into the future, and to take flight this evening, here's a hummingbird.
There we go. Thought we'd shake things up a bit. Start off with a twofer this time. So what you've just heard there is a new one on me, and I'm very pleased to make the acquaintance of Oscar. Now, I'm saying Levine. It could be Levine or it could be Lavin. It's got the umlaut over the E, so my apologies if I get Oscar's name wrong. With his band, Oscar leading from the sax, Mike Taylor trumpet, John Ray, well known of course on drums, Patrick Bleakley on bass, Ayrton Foote at the piano on a new album which is just coming out towards the end of this month. In fact, set for release on the 22nd of October at the Wellington Jazz Festival, with a whole lot of music from him. He's long been a source of innovation, we're told, on the Wellington jazz scene. He's a bit of a multi-instrumentalist. He's been a lead tenor player for the Roger Fox Big Band, also appeared with John Beasley's Monkestra, much loved by this programme. We featured them, and indeed an interview with John Beasley himself, I think, a while back here on Jumpin In. And the Wellington Mingus Ensemble, they performed throughout Australasia, Europe, the US, and he's equally adept, bit of a smart ass, isn't he, on trumpet, clarinet and bassoon. Yeah, I'm just envious, Oscar. Nothing more than that. Wonderful stuff, that one. Really did like it. It's really good, quirky, edgy, sort of post-bop, I suppose you would call it, and sort of quite shifting sort of sounds as well. Really keeps you interested and engaged all the time. And I would have to say, would definitely get in with some of the album, as I was saying at the beginning there, some of the track titles. I've definitely got to go for track titles of the year. The one we've just heard revels in the name of Jesus Saunters Across the Hudson Wielding a Plastic Saxophone, although I was equally taken with, and perhaps we'll feature at a future date, Overcaffeination on a Tiny Scooter.
Definitely a nod to Bird with that
thanks
plastic
to Rob
saxophone,
Adams, I think, was that, wasn't it?
It was Rob Adams.
Thanks,
Fantastic
Rob.
indeed, yes. And we were just discussing maybe we'll look at doing a New Zealand special
Good
next
call,
week,
yeah,
perhaps.
good call.
That would be a good call. And prior to that, we had Colibri, which in Finnish, and in fact several other languages, means hummingbird, from the Sointi Jazz Orchestra's 2020 release of the same name, with special guest on soprano. Any like to have a guess who that sax player was?
It was Marius Nesset.
It was indeed Marius Nesset. We haven't seen him for a while, have we? The Finnish orchestra was formed back in 2013 by composer and conductor Rasmus Soini as a platform for the best young Finnish jazz players. Rasmus says the group's key aim is to a new, fresh, new and stangle to big band culture without departing from its acoustic tradition. Classical ingredients meet an effortless swing in the group's cinematic style, causing definite genre boundaries to blur. When the genre is in a state of constant flux, what remains is the essential, the feeling and the freely flowing music. All I know is they're a pretty good band, and they have numerous albums to explore if you like that. Now, new music now from New York-based Grammy-nominated saxophonist and clarinetist Annette Cohen. And her new project, Quartetino, she says, "The clarinet took over my life, and I'm happily surrendering." Here's Boa Tarde Povo. perhaps a bit late in the day, but good afternoon to you too. That was Boa Tarde Povo from New York-based clarinet star Annette Cohen and her new release Quartetino with Victor Gonsalves.
It's easy to say
Victor
that.
New teeth, please. Victor Gonsalves on keys, Tal Mashesh on bass, and the wonderful James Shipp, who we had on the programme a number of times before, on vibes, percussion, and synth. A really nice album, this. It's got a great groove to it and a feeling of just sheer joy running throughout it. It was released last week, as it happens, and I think it's well worth a listen. Quartetino is the title.
Most definitely is. You are listening to Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz, of course, here on Manx Radio with Chris and myself, H. Always very welcome, and drop us a line anytime, by the way. Anything you'd like to hear or anything you'd like feature or any ideas for specials, Howard Kane at manxradio.com, Chris Kane at manxradio.com. They both get through to us one way or another, so take your pick depending on how you're feeling. You were asking just beforehand about Marius Nesset. We haven't heard from him in a while. He has, of course, been super busy. One of the places he has been is with Arild Anderson, who's brought out his new quartet, the Arild Anderson Group. I think in the past, of course, he did have Paolo Di Venezia on drums, sadly passed away a few years ago, Tommy Smith on saxes. He's got a new group now, still with a fantastic lineup. Marius Nesset taking the sax duties, and now with Helga Lean. Again, much love for this programme. We've often featured Helga's piano trio and indeed interviewed him a year or two back here on Jumpin' In as well. He's on the piano stool, and the drummer Hakan Yasset Johansson. And this new one is coming out on the 28th of October on, of course, ECM, his long-term label. It's called Affirmation. All the tracks are called Affirmation. This is Affirmation, Part 1 and Number 3. And there it goes, disappearing off it. They all flow into one another, as you can gather there, probably from that clip of that piece. And not surprisingly, because they were all improvised. It was November 2021. He had his new quartet with Marius Nesset, as I say, Helge Lien and Håkon Mieset Johansen in the famous Rainbow Studios in Oslo. But pandemic travel restrictions in Norway ruled out Manfred Eicher actually coming along. And of course, he's always at the recordings as producer for a lot of virtually all the ECM recordings, I think. And he goes on to say, Arild, he says, on the second day of recording, I proposed some collective improvising with nothing planned. We recorded a first part of around 23 minutes and then a second part of around 14 minutes. And these extended arcs of music became the new focus of the album, Affirmation Part 1. And these are presented with Affirmation Part 2, unedited in their entirety, with the album then completed by Anderson's composition, Short Story. If you like any of the previous Arild Anderson albums, I would say you'll like this one. If anything, slightly more contemplative, slightly less use of electronics than hitherto. He's always been a great adapter and user, an early user of electronics, but always been an attractor of, again, the best players on the European circuit, without a doubt, and further afield. And he certainly has found, I think, good stablemates in Helge Lien and Marius Nesset, who does indeed, if you close your eyes, I wouldn't have known possibly it wasn't Tommy Smith at times. Very sort of similar sound on the tenor. I didn't know the drummer, Håkon Mieset Johansen from Trondheim, but he has played with the likes of Matthias Eich and Ole Muttenbergen, and has also had a long association with a band we have featured here before, the Trondheim Jazz Orchestra. Out on the 28th of October, and as we say, definitely worth checking out.
And interestingly, I've got another lockdown project that Arild Anderson did with totally different music and quite a lot of electronics in it. I'll pop that into another show.
And I think Marius has also got a new one, solo one out on that.
He's got a new solo one out, which is called Home. That's quite good. Have we played a track from that yet?
I'm just trying to think. If we haven't,
we might have. We will do if we haven't done. And if you indeed like that style of music, you can't go wrong looking back through his ECM collection, particularly Mascalero for me, which was a fantastic band he had for a couple of years. Now, the last couple of years have thrown up many challenges, not least boredom for performers unable to get out and having to stay at home. Well, pianist and composer and well-known face on the San Francisco jazz scene, Adam Schulman, started toying with contrafacts. If you don't know what a contrafact is, it's applying a new melody or a new set of melodies over the top of an existing chord structure, much loved of jazz composers by and large. And he took the Great American Songbook as his starting point, and he's just released an album of originals, all with tongue-in-cheek titles, which may give you a clue as to the original source material. Here's Spare Change. did indeed. Adam Schulman and his sextet with Spare Change from his new album, Just the Contrafacts. As I said, a contrafact is an oft-used jazz trick where you take the harmony and chord structure from a well-known song and then you write a new melody over the top, and the end result's often fresh and distinctly different from the originals, although in this case, Adam does give his humorous clues in the track titles. See if the penny has dropped. And of course, only part of the battle is having the idea you still need a top band, and he doesn't disappoint in that degree either, with a sextet of accomplished players including Jeremy Pelt on trumpet, Grant Stewart on tenor, Corey Weeds on alto, and Peter Washington on the bass, Billy Drummond on the drums, and of course Adam at the piano. Recorded at the Holy Grail of Jazz Recording Studios, Rudy van der Gelders in Englewood. Just the Contrafacts, out now.
Jumping in with the Wine Cellar, stockist of the largest range of wines, beers, spirits and cocktails on the island.
this is Katrine Windfeld from Denmark, and you're listening to the Manx Radio Jumping In with Chris and H.
It grows on me. It grows on me on that stuff. The kings of microtones, Georgi Makadze, and also again another one who's very big in it, Dave Fujinski. Again, mad keen. The pair of them, great exponents of microtones. Those notes between the notes. Very popular in Eastern music, not so popular in Western music. I dare say the piano's to blame. But that's from their album that came out on Rare Noise a while back called Georgian Micro Jams. And that was a track called Mieti Vuri Preludes with, Georgi and Dave Fujinski on guitars and keyboards respectively, and then also the fretless bass of Panagluis Andrew and Sean Wright, easy to say, Sean Wright on the drums. Before that, the latest from the Comets Coming came out at the end of September with the wonderful name of Hyperdimensional Expansion Beam. Takes you on new worlds and to new sonic vistas, and I dare say very popular on the dance floors as well. Want to sort of maybe get up and dance to on one of those packed floors rather than sitting back in Ronnie's.
I think we probably set a record today with the biggest list of potentially mispronounced names that we've had on the show for quite a while.
Apologies
and speaking of
all.
microtones as well, I might fit in a bit later on. Actually, the fantastic Tarek Yamani and Peninsula. I'll bring that along to another show. And he does play piano, but he also plays microtonal piano, if it could be such a thing. Well, that's about it for this week's show, but we've just got time to leave you from a track with a surprising release earlier this year from another Finn and a favourite of this show, trumpeter Wernerai Poyola, who has become known colloquially as the Miles Davis of the North, and French saxophonist Sylvain Riflet, along with Philippe Gordani on guitar and Benjamin Philapmen on the drums. They brought out Cakewalk from a Spaceship. And if that sounds familiar, well, so will this. Here's Deja Vu.
Off to New Zealand next week.
See you next week.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Thank you.